The skies above Europe belonged to a nightmare in 1942. RAF pilots were dying at rates not seen since the Battle of Britain, cut down by an aircraft so superior they could barely comprehend it. The Focke-Wulf 190 had turned Allied air superiority into a bloodbath. And then, on a quiet afternoon in June, a German pilot landed one at a British airfield, thinking he was in France. Before we continue, do consider subscribing to my channel for more interesting insights and, forgotten moments from World War II. Royal Air Force spotters at Pembrey Airfield in South Wales watched something impossible unfold on June 23, 1942. A German Focke-Wulf 190 descended through clouds and landed smoothly. Oberleutnant Armin Faber climbed out, pulled off his helmet, and, froze. The aircraft around him were Spitfires, not Messerschmitts. He had thought he was landing in occupied France. He was actually in Wales, and he had just delivered Germany's most lethal fighter intact to British intelligence. For 8 months, the FW-190 had been slaughtering Allied pilots. RAF squadron leader J.E. Johnson barely survived his first encounter. The FW-190 was faster than our Spitfire Mark Vs in level flight and in dives. It could outroll us. For the first time in the war, our fighters were, honestly, comprehensively outclassed. American pilots arriving with P-47 Thunderbolts heard the warnings. Don't engage the 190 in turning combat. Don't try to outroll it. British intelligence desperately needed answers, but every FW-190 shot down had been too damaged to reveal secrets. Faber was flying top cover for German bombers on June 23rd, when he became disoriented over the Channel during combat. When he broke through clouds and saw an airfield, he thought he was over France. He had executed a 180-degree turn during the dogfight and didn't realize it. When he landed and saw Spitfires, RAF personnel surrounded the aircraft before he could escape. Air Chief Marshal Sholto Douglas immediately ordered the aircraft transported to Farnborough for testing. What engineers found explained everything Allied pilots had experienced. The FW-190's most devastating advantage was its roll rate. British test pilot Captain Eric Brown flew the captured aircraft and immediately understood. You could throw this aircraft around the sky with almost no effort. The Spitfire required muscle and finesse. The FW-190 responded to thought. But, testing revealed some pretty critical weaknesses. Above 20,000 feet, performance really fell off dramatically, mainly due to engine cooling problems. Meanwhile, the Spitfire's Merlin engine actually performed better as the altitude increased. The controls also became extremely heavy at high speeds, which created some vulnerable moments during dive pullouts. In August 1942, U.S. Army Air Force pilots arrived at Farnborough. Major Cass Ho filed a report that was distributed to every fighter group deploying to Europe. He wrote, "The FW-190 will beat any Allied fighter below 20,000 feet. Above 25,000 feet, our P-47s have the edge. Force them high and we win." This intelligence fundamentally changed American fighter tactics. When P-47 units began operations in 1943, doctrine emphasized high-altitude combat. When German fighters engaged, American pilots climbed, forcing the FW-190 into thin air where their engines struggled. By late 1943, kill ratios shifted in Allied favour. German ace Joseph Priller noticed the change. They know not to follow us into rolling scissors. They force us high where our engines labour. Captain Eric Brown would later write that Faber's navigation error gave us the Rosetta Stone for understanding German fighter design. That single aircraft probably saved more Allied lives than any intelligence coup of the war. Superior technology matters. Superior intelligence matters more. The Focke-Wulf 190 dominated Allied aircraft for nearly a year. But that advantage evaporated the moment Allied engineers examined the actual machine. Every design involves compromises. Once Allied pilots understood these trade-offs, they exploited them. If this story of how one navigation error changed the air war over Europe left you stunned, hit that like button and share this with anyone who thinks wars are won purely through superior firepower. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon is simply knowing your enemy's secrets.